क्यूबिक ਦੇ ਸਿਹਤ ਮੰਤਰੀ ਨੇ ਘੋਸ਼ਣਾ ਕੀਤੀ ਕਿ ਪ੍ਰਾਂਤ ਵਿੱਚ ਓਮਿਕਰੋਨ ਕੋਵਿਡ-19 ਰੂਪਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਧਣ ਦੇ ਕਾਰਨ ਸਿਹਤ ਸੰਭਾਲ ਅਤੇ ਜ਼ਰੂਰੀ ਕਰਮਚਾਰੀਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਕੰਮ ਕਰਨ ਦੀ ਆਗਿਆ ਦੇਣ ਲਈ ਇੱਕ ਤਬਦੀਲੀ ਕੀਤੀ ਜਾ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ। ਉਹਨਾਂ ਕਿਹਾ ਕਿ ਹੈਲਥ ਵਰਕਰ ਜੇਕਰ ਕਰੋਨਾ ਪੋਜ਼ਿਟਿਵ ਵੀ ਪਾਏ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਹਨ ਤਾਂ ਵੀ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਕੰਮ ਕਰਨ ਦੀ ਇਜਾਜ਼ਤ ਹੋਵੇਗੀ। ਸਿਹਤ ਮੰਤਰੀ ਨੇ ਕਿਹਾ ਕਿ ਕੋਵਿਡ-19 ਕਾਰਨ ਲਗਭਗ 7000 ਸਿਹਤ ਸੰਭਾਲ ਕਰਮਚਾਰੀ ਗੈਰ ਹਾਜ਼ਰ ਸਨ ਅਤੇ ਆਉਣ ਵਾਲੇ ਦਿਨਾਂ ਵਿੱਚ ਇਹ ਗਿਣਤੀ 10000 ਤੱਕ ਪਹੁੰਚ ਸਕਦੀ ਹੈ ਤੇ ਸਟਾਫ ਦੀ ਕਮੀ ਦੀ ਇਹ ਸਮੱਸਿਆ ਸਿਹਤ ਸੰਭਾਲ ਪ੍ਰਣਾਲੀ ਨੂੰ ਹੋਰ ਤਣਾਅ ਦੇ ਸਕਦੀ ਹੈ।
To continue to limit hospitalization, we are implementing two new measures. First, we change paradigm for healthcare workers, and second, we add new groups for the third dose. We met the new union in the last days and again this morning to put in place measures for health workers. Omicron's contagion is so exponential that a huge number of personnel have to be withdrawn, and that poses a risk to the network capacity to treat Quebecers. It forced us to make a paradigm shift. In previous waves, we wanted to identify and remove at-risk employees as quickly as possible. With the current level of vaccination, we have to do otherwise. We have no choice. In consultation with public health, the clinical direction of the ministry, and the NSPQ, we made the decision that under certain conditions, positive staff will be able to continue working according to a list of priority and risk management. It affects all essential workers, not just healthcare workers, and will provide information in the coming days. Now on the third dose, for tomorrow we will expand the new groups, private health workers and other health workers, such as palliative care, health social economy enterprise, school staff, community health and social services organization, public security, MAPAC inspectors, and slaughterhouse staff. Subsequently, it will be the turn of the general population and 18 to 59 years old from January 4th. We will open the appointment in the group of 5 years, which bring us until January 21st. We will publish the calendars in the coming hours. We continue to monitor the situation closely and will be back to you with additional measures if needed, as the experts have new information on Omicron.
ਸੰਯੁਕਤ ਰਾਜ ਵਿੱਚ ਓਮਿਕਰੋਨ ਵੇਰੀਐਂਟ ਜੰਗਲ ਦੀ ਅੱਗ ਵਾਂਗ ਫੈਲ ਰਿਹਾ ਹੈ। ਟੈਸਟਿੰਗ ਸਾਈਟਾਂ ਭਰੀਆਂ ਹੋਈਆਂ ਹਨ। ਹਸਪਤਾਲਾਂ ਵਿੱਚ ਭਰਤੀ ਹੋਣ ਵਾਲੇ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਦੀ ਗਿਣਤੀ ਵੀ ਲਗਾਤਾਰ ਵਧ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ ਅਤੇ ਹੁਣ ਰੋਗ ਨਿਯੰਤਰਣ ਅਤੇ ਰੋਕਥਾਮ ਕੇਂਦਰ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਸਕਾਰਾਤਮਕ ਲੱਛਣਾਂ ਵਾਲੇ ਮਰੀਜ਼ਾਂ ਲਈ ਕੁਆਰੰਟਾਈਨ ਲਈ ਦਿਸ਼ਾ ਨਿਰਦੇਸ਼ਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਘੱਟ ਕਰ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਗਿਆ ਹੈ, ਜਿਸ ਕਾਰਨ ਇਸ ਫੈਸਲੇ ਦੀ ਕੁਝ ਡਾਕਟਰੀ ਮਾਹਰਾਂ ਦੁਆਰਾ ਆਲੋਚਨਾ ਕੀਤੀ ਜਾ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ।
Inevitably going to have more and more people getting infected with the Omicron variant. If you look at the chance of getting a transmission in that second half of that 10-day period, it's considerably less than in those first few days. People with important jobs in keeping society functioning may not be able to come to work if they're all out for a full 10 days. Which means by the time we get enough data to make any kind of authorization, it likely will not be until a few months into 2022.
About 4 o'clock in the morning, and got to the airport, got on the plane, everything was fine, and then one of the pilots didn't show up.
They pulled out of a number of cities. Americans pulled out of 26 cities. Delta and United about 10 cities each.
We talk about every day. We've seen a huge uptick.
We've moved backwards. It's really disheartening to see that this many months, if not years later in the pandemic.
I know the lines have gotten very long in some states. That's why I ordered FEMA to set up pop-up sites in places with high demand.
ਅਲਬਰਟਾ ਦੇ ਮੁੱਖ ਜਨ ਸਿਹਤ ਅਧਿਕਾਰੀ ਡਾਕਟਰ ਡੀਨਾ ਹਿੰਸ਼ਾ ਅਤੇ ਪ੍ਰੀਮੀਅਰ ਜੇਸਨ ਕੈਨੀ ਨੇ ਸੂਬੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਕੋਵਿਡ-19 ਦੀ ਸਥਿਤੀ ਬਾਰੇ ਇੱਕ ਅਪਡੇਟ ਪ੍ਰਦਾਨ ਕੀਤੀ। ਡਾਕਟਰ ਡੀਨਾ ਹਿੰਸ਼ਾ ਨੇ ਕਿਹਾ ਕਿ ਅਲਬਰਟਾ ਵਿੱਚ ਕਦੇ ਵੀ ਉਹ ਸਕਾਰਾਤਮਕ ਦਰ ਨਹੀਂ ਦੇਖੀ ਗਈ, ਪਰ ਹੁਣ ਕੇਸ ਲਗਾਤਾਰ ਵਧ ਰਹੇ ਹਨ। ਪ੍ਰੀਮੀਅਰ ਜੇਸਨ ਕੈਨੀ ਨੇ ਕਿਹਾ ਕਿ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਸਰਕਾਰ ਸਥਿਤੀ ਦਾ ਮੁਲਾਂਕਣ ਕਰ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ ਅਤੇ ਕਲਾਸਰੂਮ ਵਿੱਚ ਸਿਖਲਾਈ ਨੂੰ ਰੋਕਣ ਜਾਂ ਨਾ ਕਰਨ ਦਾ ਫੈਸਲਾ ਇਸ ਹਫ਼ਤੇ ਦੇ ਅੰਤ ਵਿੱਚ ਆ ਸਕਦਾ ਹੈ।
Let me begin by thanking all of our dedicated healthcare workers and first responders who have been working throughout the holidays, many pulling 24-hour shifts, and thanking all who support them and their families and in the background. Many of these folks missed out on Christmas dinner with their families because they were busy looking after Albertans and caring for them at a critical time in our healthcare system. Let me add, just as a note, I know that at Christmas time, many folks from the Muslim, Jewish, Hindu, Sikh, and other communities step up to take extra shifts for some of their Christian colleagues who are observing their Christmas traditions. And I want to say a special shout out and a word of gratitude to them for what they've done. These are just some of the ways that the many sacrifices that these folks have made for Albertans throughout the pandemic. And my respect and appreciation for all of our healthcare workers goes out to each and every one of them.
Before I get to the numbers, I want to clarify some questions I've been getting about the use of rapid tests for those who have symptoms. First of all, I want to be clear that if someone has symptoms like a cough, runny nose, sore throat, or fever, they should stay home and away from others. At this point, with the transmission we are seeing in the province, these symptoms create a high likelihood of COVID-19. If this individual has a rapid test, and if that test is positive, they would only need to get a confirmatory PCR test if they live or work in a setting like continuing care, correctional facilities, acute care, or shelters, or if they have risk factors that make them eligible for antibody treatment. These risk factors are listed online. Others who have a positive rapid test, including children who have no medical risk factors, do not need PCR confirmation. What is critical to understand is what to do if you have symptoms and a negative rapid test. Rapid tests are not as sensitive as PCR tests, which means that if you have symptoms, you should stay home and away from others until you feel better, even if you have multiple negative rapid tests.
ਨੋਵਾ ਸਕੋਸ਼ੀਆ ਦੇ ਚੀਫ ਮੈਡੀਕਲ ਅਫਸਰ ਡਾਕਟਰ ਰੋਬਰਟ ਸਟਰੋਂਗ ਅਤੇ ਨੋਵਾ ਸਕੋਸ਼ੀਆ ਦੇ ਸਿੱਖਿਆ ਮੰਤਰੀ ਨੇ ਇੱਕ ਵਰਚੁਅਲ ਨਿਊਜ਼ ਕਾਨਫਰੰਸ ਵਿੱਚ ਵਿਦਿਆਰਥੀਆਂ ਦੀ ਸਕੂਲ ਵਿੱਚ ਵਾਪਸੀ ਲਈ ਸੂਬੇ ਦੀ ਯੋਜਨਾ ਬਾਰੇ ਇੱਕ ਅਪਡੇਟ ਪ੍ਰਦਾਨ ਕੀਤੀ। ਉਹਨਾਂ ਘੋਸ਼ਣਾ ਕੀਤੀ ਕਿ ਵਿਦਿਆਰਥੀ 10 ਜਨਵਰੀ ਨੂੰ ਸਕੂਲਾਂ ਵਿੱਚ ਵਾਪਸ ਆ ਜਾਣਗੇ, ਜਦੋਂ ਕਿ ਸਟਾਫ 4 ਜਨਵਰੀ ਨੂੰ ਰਿਪੋਰਟ ਕਰੇਗਾ।
Thanks, Marlene. Good afternoon, everyone. I want to start by expressing my gratitude for everyone who has supported our students in learning this year. To the administrators, teachers, bus drivers, custodians, EAs, other staff, students, and families for the incredible work that you've done. The last couple of years have not been easy. As a mother with school-age children, I know this pandemic has challenged us all in ways that many had never imagined. I'm impressed by the resilience I see in students, by the leadership shown by educators, and the kindness exhibited by Nova Scotians. The strong commitment of Nova Scotians to follow public health guidelines and look out for each other have allowed us to keep our students in school. And experts agree the best place for students is in the classroom. The in-school experience is vital to a young person's development and well-being. Schools are so much more than a place to learn. Schools are where students build lifelong connections, friendships, they play, they access food and mental health resources. Throughout the pandemic, we've acted on the advice of public health and placed a priority on the safety of schools to protect in-person learning for students. I've discussed the return to school with NSTU and PSANS and have heard their needs and suggestions for continuing in-person learning. I've shared these thoughts with public health, and many of these suggestions have been incorporated in the revised back-to-school plans. We have seen the situation evolve and we're learning to live with COVID. For now, this includes following new guidelines that offer layers of protection to slow COVID spread to protect our most vulnerable. Based on the advice of public health, students will resume with in-person classes on Monday, January 10th. We'll be using the layered approach that has been so successful in our schools. Learning centers in Nova Scotia's public schools, which we know are a vital resource for many students and families, will open on Tuesday, January 4th. With the exception of Chignecto Central Regional Center for Education, which will open their learning centers on Wednesday, January 5th. This extended break will allow for staff who will report to work January 4th through 7th to prepare for the return of students, including planning for best practices on slowing the spread of COVID. We will be re-implementing some of the past practices that have been proven to be successful, limiting movement, reducing numbers in places like cafeterias, removing excess furniture to allow for more spacing in classrooms.
ਅਮਰੀਕਾ ਦੇ ਡੈਨਵਰ ਵਿੱਚ ਸੋਮਵਾਰ ਨੂੰ ਇੱਕ ਬੰਦੂਕਧਾਰੀ ਨੇ 4 ਲੋਕਾਂ ਦਾ ਗੋਲੀ ਮਾਰ ਕੇ ਕਤਲ ਕਰ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਤੇ ਇੱਕ ਅਧਿਕਾਰੀ ਨੂੰ ਜ਼ਖਮੀ ਕਰ ਦਿੱਤਾ। ਇਸ ਬਾਰੇ ਲੇਕਵੁੱਡ ਪੁਲਿਸ ਨੇ ਦੱਸਿਆ ਕਿ ਹਮਲਾਵਰ ਮਾਰਿਆ ਗਿਆ ਹੈ। ਡੈਨਵਰ ਦੇ ਪੁਲਿਸ ਮੁਖੀ ਨੇ ਪ੍ਰੈਸ ਕਾਨਫਰੰਸ ਵਿੱਚ ਕਿਹਾ ਕਿ ਮੱਧ ਡੈਨਵਰ ਵਿੱਚ ਸ਼ਾਮ 5 ਵਜੇ ਤੋਂ ਪਿੱਛੋਂ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਹੋਈ ਗੋਲੀਬਾਰੀ ਵਿੱਚ 2 ਔਰਤਾਂ ਦੀ ਮੌਤ ਹੋ ਗਈ ਤੇ ਇੱਕ ਵਿਅਕਤੀ ਜ਼ਖਮੀ ਹੋ ਗਿਆ। ਥੋੜੀ ਦੇਰ ਬਾਅਦ ਕੁਝ ਦੂਰ ਇੱਕ ਵਿਅਕਤੀ ਨੂੰ ਗੋਲੀ ਮਾਰ ਦਿੱਤੀ ਗਈ। ਉਹਨਾਂ ਕਿਹਾ ਕਿ ਇਸ ਦੌਰਾਨ ਪੁਲਿਸ ਅਤੇ ਸ਼ੱਕੀ ਵਿਚਾਲੇ ਮੁਕਾਬਲਾ ਹੋਇਆ ਜੋ ਉੱਥੋਂ ਨੇੜਲੇ ਲੇਕਵੁੱਡ ਸ਼ਹਿਰ ਭੱਜ ਗਿਆ।
Injured in shootings involving the same male. This male offender was later located and died in a police officer involved shooting in the city of Lakewood. Now, no Denver police officers were involved in that incident in Lakewood, but I will provide the chronology of this kind of complex series of incidents that we had occurring. Yesterday at about 5:25 p.m., the Denver Police Department received a 911 call reporting a shooting that occurred at a business in the area of First Avenue and Broadway. The responding officers located 3 victims at that location. 2 adult females were found deceased inside the business. And an adult male had been wounded by gunfire, had fled the business, and was located just south of the business on Broadway. That individual was transported to an area hospital. He remains in critical condition and is recovering. He is expected to survive from his injuries. At 5:31, the Denver Police Department received a report of a burglary in progress in the 200 block of West 6th Avenue. That's in the area of 6th Avenue and Bannock. The report was that an individual, a male, was attempting to gain access to a residence and force entry to a door. The offender did gain access to the residence. He pursued the occupants through the residence, which is also a part of a business. It's a dual-purpose building there. Gunshots were fired by the offender at the occupants. No injuries were sustained at that location. In the alley behind that residence business, there was a van that was set on fire, and at this point it appears that the offender was responsible for starting that fire. And we're working to determine the source and the ignition and how that came to be.